Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. On this show, if you're a listener, then you'll already know we talk as much about what made playing the game memorable and special to our guest as we get into, or as much as we get into, the time and the context from their life that sort of filled out that canvas. I was thinking earlier this week that I was like, oh, I came up with like a more succinct way to do the intro and like a better elevator pitch for the podcast. But the truth is, I forgot what that was. So you're getting what we normally get here. If I haven't already introduced myself, I'm the host of this here podcast, Connor McCabe. And a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce our guest and get started is that anything that myself or our guest plug today, you can find a link in the show notes wherever you're listening to follow to whatever it is, whether it's a social media handle, tickets to an upcoming show, or even a link to our Patreon where we have bonus podcasts. Whether you're listening in a podcast app or watching on YouTube, if you look below in the description, there's going to be plenty of fun stuff for you as well. Some smaller things as well. You can follow us all over social media, but more importantly, I've been making TikToks for this podcast for about a month now, and they're really fun and cool. And it was something that I had held off on doing for a long time because it was like intimidating to get into, and it felt like a whole nother just like round of work to do for the show. But follow us. I believe we'll have a link in the show notes, but I think it's just Call Me By Your Game Pod. And this episode will have highlights for it as well when it comes out. But that'll do it for the housekeeping. And I'll finally introduce our guest for today's episode. So please welcome writer and improviser Casey Rosario.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, I'm so excited to have you. You come to us, with just such strong recommendations and qualification as a 3-time guest on the Reactivators podcast?
3-time.
3-time. Because were you technically the first guest, and then I think like episode 100 or something, and perhaps another, but I knew you had been on a few times.
Yes. Now I'm realizing it probably was twice. Yeah, no, but I talked about Simpsons Hit and Run, Diablo.
Yes.
And I was meant to talk about Baldur's Gate, but then I got sick, so
Oh
someone else hopped in
gosh.
For me.
Mm-hmm. Did you discuss Hades as well? Or
yes. Thank you so much.
Such a great episode. All of those are great, and I obviously we'll get into it, but I don't just know you from their podcast, but considering they're a show on our network, there's a chance that listeners to this show have heard you before, so they gotta be. I can feel like I can hear the chanting how excited they are to have you on. Thank you for being here, Casey. I know you how I know the majority of my guests, which is through the Los Angeles comedy scene, specifically the improv scene, often around like the UCB Theater or the Clubhouse. I can't put, like, some people, I have one of those memories where I can be like, oh, I know exactly when we met. I know when it was. Yours is more of just like a broad time when I sort of started to see you at more shows. I want to say it was like 2018. Are you at all able to like pinpoint a more specific time than that? Because I feel like I'm failing us.
Oh, I would definitely fail us too, but I would assume it was 2018.
Yeah.
That's when I started doing more Clubhouse shows.
Okay.
And you were running Tuesday Night Thunder.
Yes. Right? Yes, I was. Before the podcast, I'm sorry to interrupt us. I was forwarding information to my dad, who now needs a text code. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Go for it.
Just getting my dad all these codes and information he needs for some account. But yes, I ran Tuesday Night Thunder back in the day, and you must have guessed it on Mock at some point, correct? I want to say you had to have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did that a
cool.
few times too. I remember thinking that you were popular.
Huge for me.
Yes, huge. I was like, this guy's a man about town.
Yes. I will say I'm not entirely. I'm happy to hear that. Mm-hmm. I guess because it's one of those things.
It's good. It's a good. I mean, like, not like jerk popular.
Yes.
Like, well liked.
Okay. Cool.
And
I've earned
friendly
it.
with everyone.
Yes, I've had a Max Lasser came on the podcast a few months ago, and like I don't, or someone referred to me as like the mayor of comedy, which is like way too much responsibility. And also I am in a different place with like comedy now, where I used to be hosting 2 weekly indie shows, and now I do one show every 2 weeks at UCB, and I don't know a thing about the indie scene anymore. So, I've just changed so much from the person you knew.
Yes, right. Now you're more of a underground kind of auteur.
Yes, underground on the underground punk rock UCB stage, as they call it. Yes. See, I'm really good at spinning conversations and acting like I'm going to talk about my guest, but making it about myself. So as I pivot back to you, Casey, that's how we know each other. But you're a great writer. You're a great improviser. What do you want to share with the listeners about yourself who may not know you?
Yeah, I've been in Los Angeles for around 6 years now. Have done a little bit of improv and sketch. I guess I would say a lot of it, and how I've met a lot of the people out here, which has been wonderful. And 2.5 years ago, I went back to grad school. And so now I'm working as a therapist too. And I just finished that school part. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, I think I've enjoyed the comedy scene even more in and after school, which I didn't expect. It's just nice to kind of switch who you are a bit, because you can only be so much of yourself in that environment.
Absolutely.
And you want to be authentic and everything, but it's a little bit more restrained. So it's nice to have outlets and things to do comedically. Yeah. And I would say my relationship has changed a lot with it too, because it, especially, I don't know, around that time, it was like, I'll do whatever 11 p.m. show there is. Just give me. And then now it's just once a week. Yes. Maybe.
Yeah. That's really wonderful to hear. That was something that, you and I, it's not like we keep in touch super well, but I think I knew whether you shared that or like David or somebody had shared it. I knew that you had gone back to school for that. So congratulations. So are you in the period now where you have, because you and Anna Raho ever talk about this?
I work with her, which is wild.
What?
Yeah.
How did that work out?
She's at my internship site.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know her. I had known of her. And the first Zoom I was ever on for, my work, she was there too, which was so cool.
Oh, that's so cool. Anna Raho, someone that I have made an attempt to get on the show, but and I'll say one of the beautiful things, and I promise I will get back to praising, having like an excitement for your authenticity. I'll get us back there.
You're so fine.
But one of the things I really enjoy about this show is that I can have basically all walks of gamer on the podcast, and if you even have a single game that you've connected to at any point in your life, you can come on and talk about it. And you don't have to be I almost called myself a freak. That's probably not very kind. You don't have to be someone like myself who, if you're watching the YouTube version, you can see enough video game stuff behind me. And you know that it's a fraction of my personality at this point. But Anna might be at the very edge of that sort of like, I don't even know what I want to call it. But Anna's on the edge of maybe not being a guest for the show, only because she's like, I literally have almost not touched games in my entire life. I don't know if I should be on your podcast, which is totally fair. But anyway, Anna Raho, for people who don't know, is another great improviser and actor that we both know. Well, I guess you knew of and then met through school, but people would probably know her from improv if they've heard of her. But that being said, I'm really happy that you have, that you expressed that you found like another level of authenticity for yourself, and that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe sort of reignited a bit of a spark for comedy. How would you put it?
Yeah, it feels healthier, and it definitely feels as though it's, just more of an outlet than it used to be. Yeah. I think you come here and I don't know, it's part of it is social. You just like want to make so many friends, and like it feels like if you're not at those shows, you're missing opportunities for connection. But then once you've been here a little bit longer, you can realize like it's okay if I don't do this random set. Like these people are going to be around. So it does feel more balanced, and it does feel as though it's easier to pick your spots, which is nice. And I think I've been talking to people about this too, but if you knew like that you were never going to get anything from it, would you still do it? Like that's a question that some people have been asking in my writing groups and everything. And I think my answer is still yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to have pure thoughts about it and just realize that it's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that could be like a really helpful question to ask yourself, which is probably why your writing group has someone at least has like
Jeremy Schmidt asked that.
Jeremy Schmidt?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Mr. Producer,
Shout out.
Hope you're listening.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. And I think that I was lucky enough to kind of have the pandemic be the thing that just almost like took that question out of it for me, where beforehand I was saying yes to probably too many things, and now I might be on the other end of the pendulum swing where I'm like, oh, I might be able to say yes to the occasional additional thing now, as opposed to feeling the obligation to do it all. Well, all that being said, congratulations. Is there anything that like up top, because we'll do this at the end as well, that you'd like to plug or promote while you're here?
Yeah, thank you. I'm on a team Tucci that does improv, and we have a show at UCB every first Sunday.
Yeah.
It's a brutal ass time. It's 10:30 p.m., but we try to keep it lively.
Yes.
And we've had great guests. We've had Nelson Franklin, Aparna Nancherla, Miles Bonsignor, big like in the podcasting and YouTube scene. So it's been great. And we're hoping to do more shows around town. Our friend Bogart Avila just started operating Nico's Wine Bar.
I thought I saw him posting about this.
Yeah. You should record there too.
That would be cool.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, check us out. We have an Instagram and we're performing a bit more. So that's the main thing. Awesome.
Well, I'll definitely put, a link to that in the show notes as well. And if anything else comes up, feel free to shout it out, and we'll do that too. One of the people you just named is a former guest of the show, and that is my good friend Nelson Franklin.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize he'd done the show. That's so great.
Yes. Nelson and I knew Nelson because his wife, Georgia, is a really good friend of mine, and so we've known each other for years, but coincidentally, the thing we ended up connecting over was video games in 2019, and then stayed in touch. So he was an early guest on the pod, and but I saw he was playing your show, and I was like, oh, that's gonna be a blast. Months ago,
such a good improviser. Yeah, months ago, such a good improviser and funny person.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't sure who this is, if you Google the name Nelson Franklin actor, I think you'll be like, oh, he's in every show I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Casey, thank you for sharing more about, yourself and what you've been up to as well. Before we talk about your general history with video games, will you please introduce what you've brought on for today's main event and call me by your game?
The game I've brought on today is Virtual Magic Kingdom, or VMK.
I love it. And we already got the nickname out. As I was doing research for this, because we'll talk about it, I don't know how I wasn't aware of this game at the time that it was popular, because I enjoyed visiting Disneyland as a kid, and I was very online from a young age. Never heard of it, but it kept getting hammered home in the few videos I watched that it's also called VMK. They were very specific about that. Anyway, I'm really excited to discuss this a little later. It's going to be a blast. It's definitely one of the more niche things that's brought on the show, and those are always really exciting.
Awesome.
But before we do that, let's get into your history with games. Do you remember the first time you took an interest in a video game at some point? Possibly younger, but whenever it happened for you?
What a great question. I think that my parents had an kind of unpredictable nature in terms of what they were okay with and what they weren't. Like, I remember when I was younger, I was allowed to watch Nickelodeon, but not the Disney Channel, which feels as though it should be flipped because Nickelodeon had some freak-ass shows. But
yeah, and Disney just being known for being like family friendly.
Yeah,
that's funny. But I'm listening. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. So I remember they weren't as okay with video games in the beginning. So I would watch my friend Leanna play The Sims. And her dad would play one of the early Spider-Man PlayStation games.
Oh.
And we didn't play. I think it was a little bit above where we would have been able to handle the mechanics.
Sure.
But we were probably 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. Like, we'd just spend afternoons. And I don't think I even like touched the controller when she was playing The Sims, but it was enough to just like watch her and then watch whatever her dad was playing on PlayStation, which was also foreign to me because I'd never seen my dad sit very long for a TV show, let alone like, play a video game.
Like, is your dad
so I was like,
okay?
dads do this too? Yeah. So that's probably my first memory. And then my brother and I ended up having a GameCube and played a lot of Mario stuff.
Oh, now we're talking. I love the GameCube. What a, like, it's such a popular console from our sort of like generation, is like one that I feel like I've heard people like yourself who maybe didn't have games as a younger kid when and this may not be a fair way to describe it, but when the parents caved, the GameCube was like the one to break through, sort of. You said you play a lot of Mario stuff. What Mario games were you playing on this thing?
Yeah, just a lot of Kart and Smash.
Nice.
But it's interesting you say that about the GameCube. I wonder if it was because it was cuter or something. Or it was like Xbox or PlayStation just felt like too much of a reach for them. But they're like, oh, we'll get this little
yeah. It totally could be because the GameCube, like, you know, I think to the detriment of it played into its lack of success with like gamers who were looking for a mature system, being this little purple lunchbox looking thing. So I think maybe that was it. Yeah, maybe it felt a little more safe to them. I also wonder, like, if this is again more speculation, or I'm like pulling from threads that are speaking to me, my brain. So the accuracy may not be super great, but what I was going to say was that I assumed that kids, at least our generation, were interested in like the N64 and the PlayStation, so the generation before. So they had put in like the years of work to break their parents down. And so when it got to the Cube, it was like, fine, I'll do it. You put in the time.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Who knows though?
Yeah. No, but I think that's super interesting. And yeah, there was already a groundwork or foundation. And I'm sure like people were talking, or parents were talking and knew of the games that kind of came around. One thing I remember that was always funny to me is we had this tiny TV in my dad's office, and my brother and I would play balloon battle on Kart for hours in the mansion, and just in the mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could hide around corners and everything. And that was really, my brother and I have a good relationship, and he's lovely, but he was kind of a quiet kid. I think we both were kind of quiet kids. So just to sit there in silence for hours balloon battling, but it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
As you're just, like, I just imagine the silence as you're destroying each other with red shells or what have you. That game's great. I the other night had a sort of a chill Friday night in with my girlfriend Amanda, who you've met before, and our friend Steven, and we were done watching whatever we were watching, and I was like, do you guys want to play some Mario Kart Double Dash? And because I got my GameCube hooked up, and we got to play that.
How was it?
Oh, it was great. It held up super well. I sort of had a phase the summer of 2022 where Amanda actually brought this disc home back to LA for me from when she was visiting her family in Georgia. And so I didn't have this game before, so I did kind of a deep dive on it. And it is good. It's actually a very hard Mario Kart, I will say. But it's good. But I need to play the battle mode. That sounds really fun.
Now I'm trying to remember when it comes to Double Dash. Sorry, now I'm just diving into specifics.
You're all good.
But I remember you can switch the back, like player in the back to the front. What is that purpose?
I don't know what the purpose is, but I always found it fun.
It's so fun, yeah.
Yeah. I loved that it was, because it's the only Mario Kart to do that, where you have riders in tandem, and I think it's when you use an item, they switch. So if the person in the back has the item and they throw it, they will suddenly be the driver. But I don't know what like the purpose is. It's a good question. So back to your history a bit, is that you two had a GameCube. After this time, did you continue getting consoles? Was it mostly seeing stuff at friends' house? Where did your journey go?
Yeah, there was a lot of Wii after that, which I'm sure you hear a lot of.
Yes, very good. And I love hearing it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure people have talked about this too, but it was always, I think it's fascinating as a person that grew up in like the 2000s and 2010s, the Wii Fit kind of phenomenon, where it was like kind of body shaming too.
Yeah.
So I remember that, like us all standing on, was there some sort of little body scanner scale?
Yeah.
At,
it's
as young women at a friend's house.
You're like, this is not what I signed up for.
No. So not to be dark about it, but it is wild to just remember that. But then a lot of tennis, a lot of Wii tennis, a lot of Wii bowling. Like more of the kind of gathering, top level, easy entry games.
Yeah. Sort of social type of games or group stuff. Yeah. Which the Wii had some gems for, like you're saying. Wii Sports is a great one. Did you ever play like Rock Band or Guitar Hero?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh yeah. Some good stuff. I got Guitar Hero 3 on the Wii, and then eventually was like, well, I gotta get this full band version, and played that as well. Was that something you had, or did you visit places?
I had Guitar Hero. I didn't have Rock Band. So I believe it actually was the same friend Leanna had Rock Band.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, so when we need the full throttle experience, we'll go to her house.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have an instrument you liked to play?
I think it was the guitar, just because and you mean in the game, right? Okay, cool.
In the game. Because the drums were great. Like, it was really hard, but great.
But you had a lot of fun with those.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think I ever got the hang of the drums in Rock Band. I think I like tried, but just really struggled with it. And because I was used to the guitar from playing Guitar Hero, it was a really easy transition, I think. Me and Amanda were actually just, we kind of had a craving to play it the other day. Mm-hmm. And so we looked it up. Those, like the full set of stuff is kind of expensive at this point.
Whoa.
Because they were really popular. And I think that a lot of them got thrown out. They probably like live in landfills at this point. Mm-hmm. But to get a full set is not cheap anymore. But I still like really want to play it.
Yeah. Was the full set like a mic, a drum set, and a guitar? And
it came with a guitar. So I think to complete the set, you had to get an additional guitar or have one from like Hero or whatnot.
Dang. Yeah, that's a shame, because I think that it's something people would still really enjoy.
Yeah, it could definitely make a comeback. I do have one friend out here, Michael Hearn, shout out to you if you're listening, but he's got a set and we've played it before and it held up really well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I still have songs. I don't know if this happens to you, where I love this song anyway, but whenever I hear When You Were Young by The Killers?
Yes, yeah.
Young? I'm just like, oh my God. I remember playing the solos to this song on Guitar Hero.
Totally. I have songs like that too, that like whether they were songs I knew before or were introduced to because of the game, kind of like the way Tony Hawk would do that to me too, in a way. Yeah, I've got, like I think of specifically, there was a song that was on 2 that wasn't on 3. I think it was Carry On My Wayward Son by Boston.
Oh. Yeah.
Which was just, it really had a comeback at the time. But anyway, that was such fun stuff. But I kind of jumped all over you getting into the, your Wii discussion. But where did you go from there?
Let me think. I mean, I don't think I touched games much after that. That was in high school. And then in college, there were, occasional Mario Kart runs.
Yeah.
at guy friends' houses. And then I remember I played a teensy bit of Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
That was just,
gotcha.
again, like dating someone and they had it. So you
Mm-hmm.
jump in. But up until now, those were the things that I touched.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
That's not that we're comparing notes
Mhm.
or histories, but I've still never even turned on a Grand Theft Auto. And
Whoa.
I think part of it was that I didn't have a console that could play it when I was younger, and I know that would have been off limits for my house for sure.
Mhm.
And I still have yet to like even dabble. I definitely have a curiosity there, though. Maybe it's just a curiosity to be bad. Who knows? But anyway, you were just sort of getting at, and something I have come to know about you by listening to your episodes on Reactivators, that you have had a sort of like resurgence as someone who plays games in the last few years. Can you tell me about that journey a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I tried and failed just being kind of impatient to play video games. I didn't have a console, so I would like borrow someone's Nintendo Switch and or play PlayStation at someone's house. But I mean, this is just such a simple story. I got really bored on an airplane ride.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend David, who's been on the pod, David Danella, was
Yes, our prince.
I think he was working on something. He had to do work. And so I played Hades. And I think absent of me listening to music, there being the TV on, of having anything to do on a cross-country flight, I finally understood what it was.
Yeah.
So I think at first I was like, this is so hard. This is so stupid, because I had kept getting murked so quickly.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, the whole point is that you get better at it.
Yes, for sure.
And you keep going. And then like once I got into the flow state of it, I was just hooked.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you had the opportunity to just sort of play it sort of without pressure almost. That might not be a fair way to characterize what you went through, but you kind of just being on a plane, needing to pass the time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And in a vacuum where I don't do it too often now with other games, but I can't look at Reddit. Like I couldn't have like cheated and looked at what boons to use. You kind of just had to play around. So I think you're right when it came to less pressure. No one's really watching me. I think sometimes when you're playing games in the midst of life, you have to get to something at it. Like you have an event later, or you have to go to work. But I didn't have anywhere to be. So it's like I could really play it for hours.
Yeah.
Which is what I probably needed to get it into my brain.
Yeah, that's great though. I'm so glad that worked out. Yeah, I loved hearing you talking about Hades again, on the Reactivators podcast. It was so much fun. And I love that was sort of like your gateway back. I believe as well that you have played other games as well since that time.
Yeah, I got really into just trying to take baby steps. So I played 2 other Supergiant games. I played Bastion and Transistor.
Oh my gosh, Supergiant fan over here.
Yeah. Lovely games.
Oh, that's so cool.
So fun. And great soundtracks. I think Transistor, I haven't played kind of those marquee story games like The Last of Us, or I don't know, like the ones that really people talk about having moved them. But Transistor was really great and hard for me to play. And when I got to the end, I was unexpectedly moved because I thought that it couldn't stand up to Hades.
Yeah.
But then it kind of did. It just was its own thing. It was really, really fun.
That's so cool. I love hearing that. Yeah, I haven't played either of those games, but mutual friend Courtney Vinay's, of course, she's a fan of her own game, Hades, but also she's the one who told me about Bastion and Transistor, and I still haven't played them, but that's so cool. Is there anything that any games that you're currently eyeing or that you're interested in playing right now that you haven't quite dove into?
Oh, that's a great. Well, Right now I'm playing Dave the Diver and I'm almost done. I'm
Oh.
obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it.
Yes.
Later in the game, you got to run a lot of errands. I don't want to spoil anything, so that's kind of annoying. So I'm like at an annoying stage. But in terms of what I want to play, I do feel like a little bit better in terms of skill level.
Mhm.
So I do think that I would like to play more PlayStation games because I've truly just been playing Switch. So I think
Yeah.
The Last of Us, I think I would like to play that,
Ooh.
which I just mentioned. Yeah.
I think especially since you've like really, come into your own as a gamer in some like really intense action games, like those are no slouch, the games you have been playing. You can
happy.
definitely, if the interest strikes at the right time, I think the first Last of Us would be a fun playthrough. It's, as you could probably guess, well, did you watch the show?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So you know what to expect narratively, but they keep you, it's always been sort of joked that the game was already kind of a show or a movie,
Interesting.
because it's difficult to get lost. It's a fairly linear game that does a good job of ushering you to the next place, but that's really exciting. Maybe someday we'll get an update from you on your journey here. That's very, very exciting. Before we move on and actually to head to a quick break on the podcast, is there any game from your history, whether past or present, that you haven't mentioned yet that you would really like to before we move?
Whoa.
Big question, yeah.
Big question. Oh, damn it. I used to play Shrek on GameCube too. That was pretty fun. Any of
Very
like
nice.
the like baby games, which I know Tyler Schnupp calls those some
Yes,
of
he
those games
does.
like that. But and Super Monkey Ball.
Oh my
Super
gosh.
Monkey Ball forever.
Oh, so good.
Just shouting it out. Yeah.
Oh, I love the Monkey Ball games. I have 1 and 2 on the GameCube at this point. And I played the Super Monkey Ball 1 in the summer of 2022, and then I actually did an episode on number 2 last year. And Amanda played it with me. We went crazy on this game.
Oh,
yeah, it's really difficult and more challenging than I was expecting, but it holds up pretty well, I think. So if you're ever over sometime, we're going to have to play like that and double. I'm just going to make you play the GameCube.
Yes.
Which is my way of just preaching to the choir, really, since you're already a fan. Casey, that was really fun to hear from you about your history and especially your recent journey. I'm glad that, you've been able to find a new fun hobby for yourself and that it's a hobby that we're talking about today. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about all things virtual Magic Kingdom. So I will see you on the other side. Welcome back to Call Me by Your Game. It is I, your host, Connor McCabe, here returning on episode, I don't think I've even said it, episode 201. Wow. What a landmark episode with Casey Rosario. Casey, welcome back.
Hello.
We are finally here at the main event where we are going to be discussing virtual Magic Kingdom. And like I told you before, we get into your full fleshed out experience that you want to share today. I'm going to do some table setting for the listener. But as well, for you, if you want to jump into any time, feel free, because mine is coming from research over the last day. So we'll see. Without further ado, here I go. Virtual Magic Kingdom, also known as VMK, was a massive multiplayer online game, so an MMO, developed by Walt Disney Parks and Resorts and a company called Solake, which I'd never heard of. This was published by the Walt Disney Company, and it was a virtual representation of the Disneyland-style theme parks, containing areas and mini-games which were based on real park scenery and attractions. The beta version opened publicly on May 23rd, 2005, with new lands that opened up through the year 2007. VMK initially launched as a part of the Happiest Celebration on Earth promotional campaign commemorating Disneyland's 50th anniversary. Is this a campaign or anything? Do you remember this sort of thing going on? Were you plugged into Disney?
That's such a good question, but no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely didn't know the genesis of this at all.
Okay, cool.
In terms of why it was happening.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little more too, but I was just kind of curious because I wasn't a big Disney Channel watcher. My sister watched a ton of Disney Channel, but I just had, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, had never heard of this, and it would have been something that I would have gotten into. That being the case, like I said, it launched as a part of the 50th anniversary for Disneyland theme park, the one in Orange County. And despite no long-term intentions, VMK gained popularity and eventually became a long-term venture of its own. So originally, it's been stated that this was only supposed to be a brief, I think they said 18-month maximum sort of feature that they had on this website. But it was so popular that it continued. The target audience of the game was children between the ages of 8 and 14. And although VMK, and even though it was designed to be enjoyed by guests of all ages, due to the young age of the game's target users, it was patrolled by paid staff who would watch out for inappropriate behavior and language, because you could chat in this game and have a little text bubble appear above your character. And because of the need for human monitors, the time of the game was limited, which I find really funny that it's kind of like park hours in a sense. Between, it says 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Pacific time. Super interesting to me. Lastly, is that the Virtual Magic Kingdom was closed by Disney on May 21st, 2008. Many fans asked Disney if VMK was going to reopen, and apparently there were about a dozen protesters who made their way outside of Disneyland theme park at one point to try to rally up enthusiasm, which obviously was not very effective. And this prompted Disney to post a message on the VMK homepage that the game was a promotion and it was closed and there wasn't plans to reopen it, but that they were really happy about its success. And yeah, the VMK homepage now redirects to the main Disney game site. So if you try to go, that's where it'll take you. That is, some bare bones info about this game and this experience. Are there any other bullet points that you want to include about it, Casey, before we actually get into your personal history?
Yeah, there's one more thing, which I think might have been what caught my eye. There was this book series for kids called Kingdom Keepers.
Oh.
Where these kids would fight Disney villains that would come to life at night.
Okay.
At the parks. And a lot of the time they would communicate where to meet up through VMK. So I don't know if this author had some sort of agreement with Disney to mention VMK. I don't know if he how he got the rights to write kind of a Disney, I don't know, adjacent story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's how I found out about VMK originally, was through that book.
Oh my gosh.
Which feels like advertising little
nuggets. Kind of clever. Or are you saying that in the people would meet up in the locations in the game, and are you saying that they would fight little boss battles, or they would meet up for fun?
Oh, that's a good question. I think these group of kids met each other on VMK. So virtually online in this book.
Yes.
And then formed a ragtag team that would go in person to the parks.
Oh, okay.
Together to fight these people. But that's how they would talk or game plan.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's how it was. But
yeah.
Yeah.
They'd meet up in Frontierland or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah. And then, meet up in the real park in real life. I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. Now I'm getting it. So it was
without texting. It was their way of like AOL AIM or whatever. So instead of AIM, they would use VMK and then they would meet up at night at the actual park.
Okay.
In this book. Sorry, it's getting
No, there are layers to it,
There are
but
layers.
that's fascinating. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this sort of gets us into your history of it kind of cleanly, which is you were telling me that you discovered it, VMK through the book itself. Do you remember where the heck this book came from, or if it just was in your life?
Yeah, I think it was just me going and reading like every YA thing that I could at that time. And I think it was meant for 10 or 11-year-olds, those books. There were also, I can't remember. Oh, I think I was really into like Peter and the Starcatchers. I was into, I guess I said at the beginning I wasn't that into Disney, but I think some of the stories associated I really liked. And I think when you're a kid, a lot of the time you love vigilantism or superhero things.
That checks out.
So the premise of like, oh my God, these kids get to be the heroes. Like they get to go battle the villains, and the adults don't know these people come to life at night. And I think I just read the back and liked it. And I can't remember, and thank you for giving me permission to not remember some things. I can't remember if I was the one that like introduced this game to 4th and 5th grade at my school, or someone else was on it first, but I might have been one of the first people to start
helping break ground.
Helping break ground, yeah.
Yes, that's fascinating. I've got so many questions about that. This is definitely a sort of tangent, but what other I wasn't a big YA kid, but I am curious if you wanted to shout out some other like novels or series that you were into.
Oh yeah, I've talked about this. I like talk to my boyfriend about this all the time for some reason. But the Ugly series,
I haven't heard of it.
Ugly's pretty special. So the premise is basically like when you turn 16, you go to this city and they give you plastic surgery to be pretty.
Oh my goodness.
It was dystopian, but it was great.
Oh yes.
It was like kind of, but then there's this girl that's like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. Oh,
it's perfect.
We need a hero.
Twilight. I did read Percy Jackson.
Okay.
Which I loved. Which I think might even be younger than YA a bit, but
yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. I feel like I would definitely, I think Harry Potter's probably classified as like young adult as well, or at least like in that range. One series that I think of, which I don't think is technically YA, I don't even know what the distinction would be, would be, but have you ever heard of the Artemis Fowl series?
Oh my God, I loved those.
I read at least 2. I think I read 2 of the books. Mm-hmm. The first and the second one. I even think the second one is called The Arctic Incident, if I remember correctly. But it's so cool that you happen to be into those too.
Whoa, I haven't thought about that name in so long.
Yes, I thought it was such a cool, because I liked fantasy and stuff like that, so I thought it was a really cool, kind of in the way that Harry Potter's like, hey, you don't know that there's this whole wizarding world happening, is that like there's this whole like fairy world happening in Artemis Fowl, these powers and stuff. Like I might go look to see if I have the first book and read it, because I think I would like it still. Yeah. Do
you remember Gregor the Overlander? Did you ever read those?
I didn't.
Same thing. Where it's just like, there's an underland.
Yes. Oh, that's cool. Why is that such an easy sell to me? But thank you for letting me take us down this sort of books tangent. That's really fun. But you were saying that you're not sure if it was you or somebody else who did it, but that this game, VMK, spread through your school. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. I just remember it being like an itch that we all had. Like we all had to get home and immediately log on. And I remember 2 of my friends, Alyssa and Allison would log on too, and we were both obsessed with it. But I was talking to my friend Alyssa not too long ago, and she was like, I don't know what it was. I think also this might have been before we had MSN Messenger or AIM. So it's like I can continue talking to my friends, which is fun. We can like play games together. And then I'm sure too, I also wanted to talk to crushes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, if he's going to be online at the same time, like that would be great.
Oh, you've got to see it. He's got the cutest Stitch hat.
Yeah. And I think like the game rewarded that because there would be special days or time windows when they would offer outfits.
Oh,
Like you
wow.
can only get the cowboy hat if you log on Saturday at like noon and do this little mini quest. So then once you had that, it felt like you were a high roller because there would be
Yes.
tons of people that didn't get that day. So
Yeah.
it was just like the more time spent, the more, I mean, the same goes for a lot of like online games, but I think the windows of opportunity they would have for a lot of like holiday
Yeah.
events led us to like really need to get on there, make sure
Yeah.
we got everything we could.
That is so reminiscent of like, and still prevalent today in games of like, I know like you have windows of when you can get a certain skin or experience a certain event in games. So it definitely puts like an importance or like an urgency on that as a player. I'm thinking of, I don't play a lot of games that have these features, but like Fortnite is one that I think of where people are like, I can only get the solid snake skin for this month. I'm going online and I'm getting it. Or they're doing a concert and it's never happening except this. So that kind of reminds me of this.
That's so similar. Because sometimes too there would be like in like Main Street there would be a parade or like a certain like special house that you got to see that was decorated like a princess's castle or
gotta see special house.
Yes, you gotta go.
That's really fun though and exciting, and I totally see the appeal of that too. There's a lot that I want to dive into. I think I'll sort of start with the sort of like socializing of it all. Do you remember, was it something that you would log on to just communicate? Would you all try to do activities together? Do you have any, or does anything stand out from the game itself outside of maybe just the social aspect?
Yeah.
And I apologize because I kind of just asked you two questions.
No. I think the social aspect was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm one of those adults now who kind of rails on texting.
Yes.
And like the constant contact, and I like work with kids in my job, and it kind of, it freaks me out. They've always got to talk to their friends. But on conversely, I think I felt that drive too. It was like, it's a missed opportunity. You're awkward when you're in like 4th or 5th grade. Like, I just need to cement these. This is a theme in this podcast.
Yes.
When I first started comedy too, I just needed cement. So I think that was huge. But one thing that I noticed that I like in games is a scavenger hunt aspect.
Oh, sure.
Because I think I'm a little bit chaotic. I'm not the best at puzzles or mazes or like riddles, but I can look at some clues and search.
Yes.
Like I can go down into the Haunted Mansion. I can go in like Frontierland, Fantasyland and look for those. And that was rewarded highly if you got to a certain number. And I think that's why I like Dave the Diver, because I'm like, I gotta get a hammerhead shark today.
Yeah.
I'm like ignoring the other stuff, but it feels like a big accomplishment. Like finding something that you need to find. So I think I was really motivated by that aspect of the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds really fun and engaging as well. I could totally see the allure of like a scavenger hunt in the park. In VMK to like want to go down and try to find. That's really cool. Do you remember, because when I was doing my research for this, I made the joke earlier about the Stitch hat, but I did love like the customization, because you can customize an avatar in this game, of course with like a name, and then like there's some basic outfit options that you have, but as you were saying, you can win or purchase or earn more. Do you remember any part of that stuck out to you when it came to your avatar?
Yeah, I remember one of the only things I remember is how much I loved a full Tron outfit.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was sick.
Oh.
I had a Tron helmet, like the full suit. Don't remember how I got it, but I remember once I got it, I didn't take it off.
Yeah, you made the right choice.
Hell yeah. But as to your point, I remember the Stitch hat, a sorcerer's hat, a Haunted Mansion top hat. And I think it was like, it's so funny because you realize that it doesn't really mean anything, but it had social cachet to complete an outfit or have some of the rare items. So I think maybe Tron outfit was one of the only ones I completed.
Yeah.
So I had the full. And I remember like people loved this bird's nest hat that had a little bird in it at the top that was ugly. That's another thing that stands out to me. But yeah, I remember it like being an accomplishment and something that like random players would say.
Yes.
Oh, good job, or I love your outfit, or like we're matching if you got to one of those.
Gosh, it's like I feel so seen because these other players are talking to me.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure it was like, especially with even back then, in the mid 2000s to late 2000s, like Disney already had such like a wealth of characters and properties to pull from that there's probably something for just about everybody who would play this game, I would assume. But I do love hearing that there was also maybe just a little bird's nest hat. I'm like, I don't know what that's tied to, but that tickles me. That's really funny.
Maybe some developer's idea. Though I was like, let's try this out. And then it took off. Like everyone wanted that hat.
Yeah, see, believe in my ideas, said the developer. That's really cute. We've talked a decent amount about the game. I want to get into a little bit of the context of your life when you were playing this. You've started to share a bit about the connection to your friends at school. Can we begin by doing some scene painting where your computer would have been set up and like what that room was like?
Yeah. I lived in like a 2-story home in Florida. Like sticky,
cool.
like Clearwater, Florida. And it was like a pretty just like vertical home, like not that much square footage on the bottom. And so to the right where was my brother's room and my room, and then to the left was like this mini office sometimes where my dad would work. And that's where the small TV was.
Oh yes.
Where when I would get ready for school, I would watch Steve Harvey or Saved by the Bell, which is insane.
Steve Harvey, you need a couple things when you're getting ready for school. You need your cereal, you need your stuff, and you need your Steve Harvey.
You do. So there's a small TV, and then there was like whatever computer that, and I wouldn't be able to tell you what kind, but like,
yes,
just like a big like boxy desktop, and
cool.
That's where it was. And it was like there was one window in the room and one computer that people had to share. So now I'm remembering too, like really had to stake your claim.
You really did back then, especially with like once the internet came into households more, I think prevalently. Like I had a younger sister. It was just the two of us, but between us and like my dad who would use it for work or other things, it was always a battle.
Oh yeah, and that's such a cool question because it's making me realize and remember that once I was in later middle school or high school in Florida, they would just drop you at the mall in the summer because I mean it's just like AC. I just grew up with so much mall culture.
Yes,
it's just like I spent hours and hours and hours of my time at the mall. But before that, there's really no escape when it comes to how hot it is. So my parents might have just been like, "Yeah, play VMK."
Totally.
Like, you can't really go outside right now. It's like brutal in the summer and after school, especially like April, May through August.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Gosh, I am so tickled by the mall culture comment because that makes so much sense. Out of like, it's kind of a perfect age for that too. Like late elementary school, early junior high. That's really great. So since we've done a little scene painting, and is there anything else from like the context of your life that you want to share? Like, do you remember things that you did at that age, or I don't know if you had activities that you were into or friend groups that were important?
Yeah. One thing that might be interesting is I went to like a really tiny school. I was one of the people that was in Catholic school, and I think there might have been 25 to 30 kids in my class.
Oh, wow.
So I do think that like we were a little bit of a crew,
Mm-hmm.
and tight knit, and that I think is something that I've looked back on and found to be pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
We all lived pretty close together too, most of
Okay.
us. The town I grew up in was called Safety Harbor, so when it wasn't blistering, like a lot of hide and seek, a lot of kickball,
Mm.
a lot of like some beach, but more just like bopping around like in the downtown area near the water, which was great. But I think like because so many of us were so tight knit, a lot of the things we did together.
Yes.
It's like you couldn't not invite someone to your birthday party.
Yeah.
It was like, what, there are gonna be 3 kids out of the 30 kid class.
Yeah, that you exclude. Yeah, that does make it tougher. Gosh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I went to a public school, so I didn't have that experience of like of a more tight knit group, like of your entire 5th grade class being 25, 30 people. But I had friends who did, and so like I would sort of understand that or hear about that tangentially, really. Were there like outside of school, were you like a sports kid? Were you an artsy kid? Like what like filled your time outside of VMK?
I was really a sports kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Basketball.
What sports did you play? Basketball?
And then later volleyball. But I believe I started volleyball when I was 11. So, and then once, I was introduced to volleyball, that was it. Once I played so much. I played travel ball and then played like a ton through high school too. But my dad coached girls rec league basketball.
Oh.
And he later coached at the high school, the boys varsity team, which
really
always like bugged me. But
yeah. Was it like dad's encroaching on your space?
Yeah, it was just like embarrassing because like he would know like the kids.
Yes.
Like, and the goss.
And especially that's where the tight knit group rears its head.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It does.
Gosh.
But yeah, I was playing a lot of like rec league sports. I was never the best at soccer.
Sure.
I tried my hand there, but yeah, those were the two. But I danced for 10 years too. I couldn't sit still. Wow. So
dang, a lot of athletic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Do you ever out here in Los Angeles, especially in our like artsy comedy community, do you ever feel like you don't know anybody who is a sports person? Because I don't feel that way, but like it does feel like a lot of the time that the athletes, and I am lumping myself into our group as I'm calling it.
Yes.
Are not like the majority. And so I remember this comes up occasionally on the show, but when the whole sports ball thing was really like in vogue of like making a joke about sports in that way is like that. It's just another thing to be nerdy about. I'll tell you.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think it's a couple of things come to mind. Like it's interesting because I've had 1 or 2 people say to me, "Oh, do you know my friend? They like did really well in the Clearwater or Tampa art scene or they were in a lot of musical theater." And I'm like, no. No. And then like I think some of my friends out here, I'll joke with them about it. I don't know if you know Alan Johnson. He's on Tucci. He has Mr. Horsepower. I adore Alan.
Yeah,
but
Alan's
he'll
great.
Sometimes be wearing like a Texas Ranger sweatshirt, and I'll just whisper, "I fucking love that you love sports" in his ear.
That's so funny.
Because it's even just referentially refreshing sometimes.
Yeah.
Like just being around people with diverse interests.
Totally. And
but I do feel like on the outside sometimes of like maybe what archetype I was.
For sure. Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think when I say all this too, I don't want to be like dismissive of people who've like known sports people to be dicks, because I mean, there are dicks in every community and like I guess culture, but I think maybe that's where some of the added like not animosity but like sort of tongue-in-cheek joking can come from. Sorry to take us down this big sports philosophical conversation, but that's fun that it's just like adding some like interesting layers to you that I didn't know about. That's really cool.
Oh, Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, do you play tennis? Because lately I've been playing tennis with some comedy people.
I don't, but I did play pickleball for the first time recently.
Did you like it?
I really liked it.
I haven't played it yet.
I think your tennis skills will translate in some ways really well, because I had only ever played tennis casually growing up, but I still sort of like, I know the form, and I was like doing tennis stuff of like setting my feet and like adjusting my feet like rapidly before I actually swung, and I was like, oh, this would translate to tennis. So I think you'd be a star if you tried it.
Hell yeah. Can't wait.
One of the last few things I want to ask you about is, and it's okay if there's a no to this question, but do you have any specific memories of playing VMK, whether it was like a moment you had with your friends or like an event that happened? I just wanted to leave a chance for you to share something about that, if so.
Thank you. Well, one thing that I was thinking about that I didn't immediately remember, and then was reminding myself of the different worlds or things that you could do. I did play a lot of the Pirates of the Caribbean minigame, which is just basically a shoot, like a line up and shoot battleship type game.
Oh,
and I'm wondering too, like that, I really did enjoy playing Hades. So there's like kind of a through line there too, just like, I don't know. The other mini games for like a photo safari and making a pretty fireworks show, and I think I really enjoyed the like competitive aspect of the battleship one. So yeah, that's one thing that comes to mind. And
cool.
I've noticed with my game playing, I really respect, but didn't ever relate to folks who, like with Animal Crossing, like wanting to make the best garden or house. Like I always wanted to complete the things that were a challenge. Yeah. Whereas like in VMK, I think my house had nothing in it. Maybe it had like a couple posters I won, but that was part of what some people loved. Like they had best room awards, and you would do cute or boot. I don't know if you read about that, but like
didn't.
You could go and have mini costume contests. So you would go to someone's room, and if they thought that you were like killing it, you could stay, and if not, they'd boot you. Oh
my gosh. This is like how Zuckerberg must have gotten the idea for, what did they call it? Was it Smash? It's not Face Smash was the thing he made back in the day. Definitely not how he got that idea, but that's interesting. Yeah, it seems like there's so many fun details about this game and a lot that you could wring out of it if you were someone who played it. Well, yeah, I meant to ask too, like this hasn't come up at all, especially, I mean, you grew up in Florida. Were you a Disney Parks kid at all? Did you ever go to the Orlando theme park?
Yeah, I went twice, which wasn't, I think, that much comparatively to a lot of folks who grew up in Florida. But I did have a really special birthday, I believe, with my best friend growing up. When we turned 12, we both went with our respective families. That's
really cute.
It was really cute. And that was what we wanted to do.
Can I ask what month your birthday's in, just for fun?
January.
Oh, I hope I messaged you on Instagram when people see like I did.
Yeah.
Huge.
Which is really thoughtful.
Well, I find it like, because even if I don't remember someone's birthday, if I see that, when someone posts their story, it's like the easiest hack to know that it's their birthday.
Right. Yeah.
So I try to like remember to do that. But it's okay. So maybe it wasn't necessarily in January, but that's when your birthday is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, but no, it is a good hack. I like doing that too.
Yeah,
I need to put stuff.
It makes me seem more thoughtful than I am.
But, and no diss on people who this is the case for, but
yes,
some people don't.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And we'll remember that.
I will. Not on my close friends list. But yeah, I think that was a really special birthday. And I think we had some sort of special tea lunch. Like, I think it was maybe the princess tea that you can get there, where you have, which I wonder if I liked when I was 12. I think I still had fun.
Yeah.
With like Cinderella or whatever. And it was like a more, I guess, on like legs trip than I had.
Yes.
Because, with Fast Pass
Mm-hmm.
and special meals, it can just be a much better day than the longer day if you don't have those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like such a sweet, fun trip too. Do you remember at all if like that? Were you playing the game at the time? And I know it's kind of a specific question. Do you remember if it like made you more excited about the game at all?
No, that's a great question. I believe I was playing the
Mm-hmm.
game at the time, but I didn't go with my family. I went with
Gotcha.
hers. And then I think maybe my mom was there too,
Mhm.
because they started putting trading card packs and hiding things
Yes.
in the parks, which I remember having to kind of push down for the day because my friend who went didn't play it.
Yes.
So I was like, I can't like go off of my little mini quests or beg for this other stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So you didn't like, you're saying you didn't push to like go find this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It didn't. I know. Which I wish I had seen that other part of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Today I was just thinking about how much of a missed business opportunity this whole thing seems, that they didn't just keep their user base and start charging and grow this, because so many Disney people would have been in love with finding tie-ins throughout the park forever.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, you're totally right. Even if they kept it like, I mean, you don't need to think of the business aspect of it, but I think regardless, yes, you're absolutely right. And yeah, now it's just a kind of a what could have been sort of thing. Casey, we've talked about, you've helped us dive into so much of what like was fun for you about VMK and some of the memories around playing it. Is there anything you haven't gotten to mention about your experience or the game that you'd like to still?
I don't think so. It was just a right good time. I think to your point, and maybe I need to get more into different types of games, but there were so many elements that made it fun. Like with the clothing and the trading and the quests and the mini games and the kind of room awards.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played a game that did that, all of that.
Yeah.
And the social aspect too.
Gotcha. Well, very cool. Well, do you feel like, I mean, I was going to ask you to wrap up your thoughts and stuff, but it feels like you kind of did that, unless you wanted to say anything else.
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're not done with the pod today, but that'll conclude our discussion mostly on VMK. So thank you so much for bringing this game on. Like, I'm excited regardless of what people want to talk about, but when it's something like as niche as this that like technically doesn't exist anymore, it's really exciting. So thanks for coming on regardless.
Of course. I had to look it up a couple years ago because it didn't exist. I thought that I dreamt it.
Yes. I love that you described it as a fever dream. That was so funny. Well, very good. I do have a couple of post-show segments prepared for you today. The first of which, Casey, is the Fact Me by Your Game segment. And that's just where I'm going to share a couple fun facts with you about this game. These come from a video that I found called The Closed History of Virtual Magic Kingdom. And let me make sure I get the couldn't think of it. The channel name. It's called Expedition Theme Park. I'm going to drop a link. You don't have to watch this now, but both of these fun facts will come from this video. I'll put a link in the show notes for the listener as well, if I can find the chat. There we go. Anyway, my first of which facts come from this video, and I have it titled In-Park Quests. You were talking about how when you visited on your, that Disney trip for your 12th birthday, that you wanted to go find the sort of in-park trading cards and stuff. And during the early years of this game, there was like a whole store set up at Disneyland and Disney World for this game. I guess it was called VMK Central. You can actually in this video see to some like camera like someone's probably just like a home video footage of them walking in. This helped players win in-game prizes. There were scavenger hunts. The ones you would do in the game, you could do those in the park as well and win certain prizes.
I did not know that. That's amazing. I didn't know that they had a whole central store. I had heard about the finding of like Mickey's and being rewarded, but that's so cool.
Yeah, that I think kind of to your point of like the missed opportunity, I think this is something that sounds exciting to me now of like, oh, I could on my trip to the park, I'm doing stuff that's going to reward me in game or vice versa is so exciting. The Disney World storefront in particular closed in 2007. And I don't know when the Disneyland one closed. But yeah, that's the first fact. The second one I have titled VMK Lives On. Now, even though, and I don't know if you had found this, even though Disney closed VMK, it still lives on to this day. Are you aware of this?
Yes.
Yes. Now it's there's a fan recreation project that started all the way back in 2013 and is still around. I think it's called My Virtual Magic Kingdom, but I think there are a lot of features from that, not all of them, but a lot from the original game that are available. So if you ever really have an itch to scratch, you can go and play this version of it.
Yeah, I've seen stills from it on the subreddit.
Yeah.
I went to their little subreddit. I'm very curious, but I haven't ever created a login or anything.
Yeah.
But after talking about it, I might go poke around.
Yeah, I wonder if it would like be one of those things that just brings you back, or if it would like ruin the magic. Who knows? But it's there if you want it. Anyway, that'll do it for the Fact Me By Your Game segment. Again, thank you to the YouTube channel Expedition Theme Park for this great video. It's about 15 minutes long. Totally worth watching if you found this conversation interesting. And I will lead us into the final segment of the day, the game recommendations. Now, Casey, this segment is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat VMK as your passionate summer love in Italy, your Army Hammer of sorts that, unfortunately, spoilers, it's not going to work out between you two. So in order to help you get over this heartbreak, I'm going to try to connect you with 3 potential other flings that all have something in common with VMK, because I personally find that a little familiarity goes a long way. So do you mind if I give you 3 recommendations?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first of which is if you really loved, like the most fun part of the game for you was exploring the park and checking out and just feeling like you're actually there. If you want a more visually compelling version of this, I don't think it's as involved. There's a game called, it's just called Disneyland Adventures now, but it was originally on the Xbox Connect. This is a game that you can still play on Game Pass that I played a couple years ago when I was looking, because I think you have an Xbox and Game Pass at your home.
I think so.
Well, we can always double check that later, but I think I've heard this from David. But
oh wait, yeah, we do.
Okay, great. This is you can download this game for free on Game Pass. It's kind of like if you just ever want to feel like you're walking through Disneyland Park, I would download this and check it out. It's really fascinating stuff. Really pretty game too. It's like, it looks like a modern game. So if that's your takeaway, then Connect Disneyland Adventures is for you. Your second recommendation is if you're sick of Disney, you're actually tired of these folks, the mouse is not doing it for you, but you do want to play a theme park related game, I'll recommend to you Universal Studios Theme Park Adventure, which originally came out on the GameCube. Fair to assume you've never heard of this?
No.
Now, this game was a game where it was, I believe, a launch title on the GameCube, or at least came out in the first month or 2 of its existence. But it was the object of the game, set in Universal Studios Japan theme park, was to complete a bunch of mini games, basically. So this is also kind of, if you like the mini games, this will do it for you. They had a Back to the Future game, Jaws, Jurassic Park, E.T. It's very dated because it's very much like if you would have visited the park then, kind of what it would look like. Woody Woodpecker, sort of, I don't know if you control as Woody Woodpecker or if he bothers you the whole time, but I just remember they really put him at the front of this. So anyway, That's your second recommendation, is if you're sick of Disney. And your last one is that if VMK is too mature for you, you actually need something a little more for the child, who's your inner child, I guess, then I'll recommend a game that I wonder if you've ever played. It's called Club Penguin.
Yes.
Okay, this very similar setup to VMK in some ways. So, and one of the most popular games from that era. Were you saying that you had dabbled with it before?
Yes.
Okay,
I
cool.
did play. I don't remember all of it, but I played.
This was definitely like a little before my time, or I just never interacted with it like VMK. But I do know it has a cult following. It's closed as well, so sadly, I'm recommending it to you, but there's not really an option to play it. So that's on me. But to wrap up your recommendations, I have for you Disney or Connect Disneyland Adventures, Universal Studios Theme Park Adventure, and Club Penguin. That'll do it for the game recommendations, and that'll bring us to the end of the show. So before we go and plug whatever we'd like to on the way out, thanks again for joining the pod, Casey. This is so much fun to hear from you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was awesome to have this chat, and it's not a chat I get to have often, so
yeah. Well, thanks for bringing this fever dream on the pod. I know you plugged Tucci earlier. Do you want to plug that or any socials or anything before you go?
Yeah, I'm Casey Rosario on Instagram and Twitter. The Rosario is spelled with an IYO, and I also am on a sketch team at the PAC called Chow, and we are up the third Sundays of every month, and that's been a blast too. I forgot to mention that. Killer.
Did you have a show the other day, like a couple, I guess yesterday, or was it the previous week?
The previous week, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's awesome. I'll look up the schedule for the PAX sketch shows, and I'll be sure to put a link there as well, and to everything else you just plugged. But yeah, without further ado, I'll go ahead and close us out with some plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. If you like his work or you just want to say thanks, you can follow him on Instagram at glenn.jay. The show is all over social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. And definitely encourage you to follow us on TikTok right now to see the fun clips. Who knows what we're going to find from this episode that's going to stand out. Plenty of great moments. But yeah, definitely give us a follow over there. I am all over social media as well. There's links in the show notes, including my Twitch channel where I've been streaming Half-Life 2. Wonder if by the time this comes out, if I'll be done with it. We'll have to see. But I'm at twitch.tv/consiscool69. The show is produced by the great and mentioned earlier on the pod, Jeremy Schmidt, who, if you want to give him a thank you for the work he puts into the show, check out his podcast, Video Games, a Comedy Show. And lastly, is if you like my conversations with people about video games and you want more of that, we have a ton of bonus content at patreon.com/super NPC Radio, where I do a monthly bonus version of this show, the co-op series, where in fact, we keep mentioning David on the show. David was just on the most recent episode, which when we're recording comes out tomorrow. But when this episode releases, will be in the past. We did an episode on Final Fantasy VII Remakes Intermission DLC, and I have one of those that comes out every month. We got the Games Club over there. You can join for as little as $1 a month and get a back catalog of episodes. So if you like me and you want to hear more crap, I got crap over there for you. But that'll do it for this episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.